Hi there, I'm Dr. Victoria Mattingly, and this is Better Humans at Work. This week, I'm joined by Kate Bays, an edutainment and hospitality wizard for online meetings and events. Kate helps busy executives and coaches host engaging online meetings without having to learn some new technology or become a human switchboard. I know I could have used Kate a number of times in our client sessions and workshops that we do. We're all about high engagement and interactivity whenever we do virtual events, and having to both manage the tech, but also be an engaging facilitator can be really tricky. Kate and I met through our shared connection through DDI, Development Dimensions International, which also does great work when it comes to virtual webinars and different trainings and sessions. And Kate and I talked all about, how she uses technology and, digital platforms to elevate and amplify women's voices of anyone from underrepresented groups, but women specifically, because we know through research and anecdotally, for all you ladies watching out there, that sometimes our voices get lost in the conversation when it comes to, talking with or over our male counterparts. And so I'm excited to share our conversation. And without further ado, here is me and Kate Bays. Hi, Kate. How are you today?
Wonderful. So glad to be with you. This is very exciting.
What a great way to start my morning. And before I started my morning with you, I started my morning with coffee, and I realized that I had a DDI mug, and that's how you and I met. And so I'd love for the audience to know a little bit about your background, and I'm so excited for our conversation about amplification. But let's just chat a little about how we met, the work you do, and then we can get into where you're headed and what that has to do with amplification. So tell us about yourself.
I started out in television news, spent about a decade doing that as an anchor, a reporter, and a producer. And then when I started having children and became mom and got out of television, I segued into what I do now as a virtual producer, just by the keyword producer. Someone had said, "Hey, Kate, DDI has this, this position. You should check it out." And lo and behold, it was just perfect, picture perfect. And then here we are years later. You and I have this DDI connection. So perfect. Again, connecting over my background and what you were doing, and just amazing how the world works like that. It is really, literally such a small world.
It really is. And so for those watching out there that not know what DDI is, it's a leadership development and assessment firm based here in Pittsburgh, where Kate and I are both located. And there are chock full of IO psychologists, industrial organizational psychologists. I'm always trying to share the word about IO psychology because I feel like people don't really know what that field is, and we have so much value to add. And so simply put, we use science to improve the human experience at work. And we do that through a variety of ways. And at DDI, Kate helps produce the virtual experience for learners, especially, and that's so important because it's easy to kind of lose people or keep people engaged. And so having someone behind the scenes, making sure all the tech is working properly so they can just focus on learning and experiencing. And so that work is just so important. And yeah, I'm just so glad we got connected through that shared background. And then what are you doing now? Like what is on the docket for you? And then I'd love to dig in a little bit about how what that has to do with amplification.
Yes. So I am doing a lot of different projects with virtual production, helping with all kinds of different things, virtual conferences, train the trainers, just you name it, any kind of virtual, and even looking into hybrid. I think hybrid's a great buzzword for the fall. I'm anxious to see, how that's all going to work out and how I can fit into that picture. So lots of new and exciting things. But I recently was a very squeaky wheel and acquired LinkedIn Live, which if you don't have it, you have to apply for it. And sometimes you just don't get it right off the bat. So I just kept on. And lo and behold, I now have it. And I want to use it to help, like you're saying, to amplify anyone, whoever's voice needs amplified. So there are so many different nonprofits or projects happening, or when we were talking just before we got started here, great ideas that are happening in meetings that just don't come to fruition. So let's get the word out. I mean, we have these virtual platforms. We can reach a worldwide audience. It doesn't have to stay in a meeting room. It doesn't have to stay in your company. It doesn't have to stay in your city, in your state. I mean, this just keeps growing and growing. And so I want to help do that. I think that this tool that and my background can really help to be such a really neat instrument in helping people to do this. So kind of like using my television background, so to speak, interviewing people who want to launch a new idea, want to launch a business, want to launch a nonprofit, and need help utilizing all these tools, getting the word out. So live streaming or recording and then getting it onto a YouTube video or whatever the case may be, so that it's out there. And I think that a lot of people don't have that big idea. And I think that when I have a conversation with them, it's interesting to see the light bulb going off, like, wow, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we can do so much more than this. It doesn't just have to be a little webinar. It can be so much more, and I want to help do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. There's so many things unpacked there. So first off, for the viewers out there that haven't heard about this term amplification, I just want to share a little bit of history behind it. So back on the Obama administration, what would happen, and he had a lot of women on staff, and that's another shared interest that Kate and I have is our passion for women in business, women in leadership, and what we can do to help eradicate and reduce the gender inequity that exists in the workplace. And so even though Obama had a lot of women on his staff, which is the first step, that's the diversity part of gender equity, making sure we have women at the table. The next piece is the inclusion part, making sure those voices are actually heard and they could be full contributors, into the work. And so what was happening in these meetings was that women's voices were not being heard. Ideas were being shared that weren't being acknowledged. They were literally being talked over and interrupted. And so a word that you used a moment ago, Kate, was an instrument, right? And so these women were recognizing this barrier and this challenge they were facing, and they chose to be instruments for one another and amplify each other's voices. So for example, let's say Kate had a recommendation for a new policy, right? No one listened, no one paid attention. Even worse, Joe across the table then brought up policy work, 5 minutes later. So I, sitting at the table, would go, yes, Joe, that was a great point Kate brought up earlier. And Kate, can you share a little bit more about that? And just kind of like plus oneing and repeating and amplifying and putting that spotlight, that megaphone, using those instruments, right, through our own voices to amplify the voices of others. And so this is a really effective strategy, especially when it comes to creating more inclusive organizations, and also thinking about who's most likely to get talked over, who's most likely to get interrupted. And a lot of times it is women, it is people of color, it is those from underrepresented groups that don't have that majority status or that privilege that being from an overrepresented group tends to lend, right? And so this idea of amplification not just works in a meeting setting, but all these great examples that Kate has shared about, using digital media, using platforms. And something else I love that you shared, Kate, was how you're using your background and your skill set and your area of genius to really take people to the next level when it comes to amplifying their voice and their mission. And so I was curious, digging a little bit more into this gender equity and women in leadership, women in business. What are some wins that you've seen, when it comes to amplifying voice, or some of the ideas you have about how we can especially amplify women and these voices that typically aren't as heard in the business world?
I think the biggest thing that's sticking out in my head right now is making a conscious decision not to be in competition with one another, but I'm behind you. No matter what you're doing, I want to help you. I want to help each other rise up, not, oh no, that's a really great idea. I don't want her to, the one up is a positive thing, not like one up your, in competition with me. And once you decide that it doesn't matter what you're doing, I'm going to help you. Yes, you're another woman, you're another this, that, what, I don't care what you are. I want to help people. I don't want to squash people down.
Yeah.
So you have a similar idea to me. Go ahead. It's not going to be identical. No two snowflakes are the same. Go ahead and run with it. And yes, I'll help any way I can along the way. Here's what I learned, and it didn't go so well. So, hey, maybe avoid doing that. And yes, go ahead. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's probably the biggest sticking point, is getting out of that mindset where it's a competition.
Yeah, I love that so much. And that really resonates with me. And the way I do business and lead my company and find partners, and I view people who are doing similar work as collaborators,
Yes.
as partners, as how can we, instead of competing over a small piece of pie, grow the pie together. And I feel like that's been such a strength of business. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about, what is feminine leadership? And I think it's not viewing things as a zero-sum game. It's more collaborative, it's more lifting each other up. And especially when it comes to gender and women specifically, I think a lot about Queen Bee syndrome. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yes.
Yeah. So Queen Bee syndrome is, I'm the one woman who made it to the top, and I'm going to make sure I'm the only one that stays here, right? Because I've had to play this game and kind of change and code switch and not be who I am, but I made it, right? So I'm going to keep all the other women down because there's only room for one, right? And so that queen bee, and that's not doing anyone any favors.
No.
It's not changing the system. It's not helping yourself. And the more we can elevate one another, support one another, the better the world will be for everyone, and not just women, but the whole workplace, the whole business world. And think about how much more creative and how many better products and solutions and experiences we would have if we're working together, as opposed to being in competition with one another. So I absolutely love that. And I'm so excited to see the collaborations that you have on deck for all the amplification efforts you will be up to. What else have you seen, that's really helped, especially like getting like more marginalized voices out? And so I know you mentioned like nonprofits, maybe people doing more social justice work. Like what successes have you seen in amplifying some of those voices that they don't have the marketing budget, right? They can't hire the fancy marketing firm or get the ad or get the billboard, right? And so like, what have you seen that's worked for more of like a grassroots kind of bootstrapping effort?
Yes, I think that is, I love that you brought that up, because I think so many people think that you have to go big or you're not going to make it. But you have free tools that can get the word out worldwide, just from the comfort of your home, from your own little laptop, your own device, shoot, your own phone, whatever, anything. Utilize LinkedIn, utilize YouTube, utilize all these virtual platforms. Start small, get your presence on there, get some posts on there, get some videos, get some people to subscribe and like, and continue to build from there. That's your billboard.
Yeah.
That's your ad, your video. You make your own, you do it right here. You're reaching a huge audience. It's limitless.
Yeah.
It's the World Wide Web. Use it. It's at your disposal.
I love that. And I follow a lot of Seth Godin. He's such like a marketing like genius, and he always says, like we all have at our fingertips our own personal marketing agency, right?
Oh.
And we forget about that. We see these influencers, or as you said, you see all these people like doing all the fancy things. All we need to start with I started just posting videos, just short videos of me talking about the business, and it's literally like there's no prep. I'm just sharing for a couple minutes of what we're up to, and those are my highest engagement, of just that, like like peek behind the scenes, and people want to see what's going on and get to know you. And, even if you're in a sales role, like that, like no trust factor, like there's no better way to get people to know you and like you and trust you by engaging with them on social media and being creative with these tools that we just have at our disposal. And so, Kate, to wrap up our conversation today, for those out there watching who want to amplify others' voices and use digital media to do so, what would be 3 tips that you would recommend people use to amplify the voices of others?
I would say check out these social media platforms. Do a search, the things that you're into, the people who have a message that is worth amplifying to you, and literally do the things that they're saying, at the end of their videos, like, comment, subscribe, repost something that really resonated for you, or comment or put a little emoji on it so that it's not just, it'll then go out to all of your network.
Yeah.
So these tiny little things that just one little click can help whoever's message needs to get out there. You can support these people in such a broad way by just doing some simple little thing. And the competition, change your mindset.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more about the competition change mindset.
I really think that if you just take the time to take a look out there, take a look at your competition and realize we're not all doing the same thing. You're doing something totally that's really not trampling on my ground, so to speak. And maybe we chat, and maybe we bounce some ideas off of each other, and we work together, and we realize, hey, I did try that. That didn't work so well. I don't know, maybe it'll work for you, but here's what I've done. What are you doing? Do you mind sharing? Maybe we can, work together, build a network, make a group on LinkedIn, and collaborate instead of compete, collaborate.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. So the first point is really going out there and finding people who have messages that really resonate with you and really engaging with their content and leaving those comments, and then also changing this mindset from competition into collaboration. And that's actually really strategic too, because chances are if someone's doing something that's similar to you, you're going to have similar audiences you can reach. And if you collaborate with one another, you're then growing that audience with already stacking the deck by people who are already interested and following people who do similar work than you. Okay, so engage with people's content and I would also add, especially those from underrepresented groups and those that maybe need some of that amplification or don't have the resources. Secondly, turn competition into collaborators. And do you have one more tip for those out there who want to amplify the voices of others?
I would say pay attention. Pay close attention to what you're doing, to what other people are doing. Are you someone who is talking over someone, who is not allowing those ideas to enter, who is shutting people down? I think we are all also ingrained in our own ways, how we do things, how we react to people. Take an inward look at your own self and figure out if you're one of those people and how maybe you could tweak that to enable and amplify other people whose ideas you've been squashing.
Oh, I love that so much. You're just having this self-awareness. So I think we get so caught up in pointing the finger at others, and you're stifling these voices and you're not helping others and you're being performative, but we rarely point that finger back at ourselves. And we all have the opportunity to be better humans, to do more of the right things, to help make the world a better place, to be less selfish and more selfless individuals. And so I love this idea of the self-reflection, the self-awareness of, how am I getting in the way of voices, and what can I be doing to change my behavior and actually have that personal accountability to do better. I absolutely love that. Kate, how can people get in touch with you? Should people be reaching out? Like, how can people get in touch, especially if they have a message that you can help amplify?
Yes, definitely find me on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube page as well. So I want to, help amplify by posting some videos of people whose message needs to get out there. I'll, be utilizing those platforms to post on there. But yes, please let's connect, reach out. I would love to expand my network and help amplify in any way that I can.
Oh, Kate, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. And
My
thank you
pleasure.
for all you're doing to help improve the human experience at work.